Hello, and welcome to Bronze Age Monsters, the show where we wade into the weirdest and wildest waters of the comic books of the 1970s. This season on BAM, we're talking about a Bronze Age buffet of short lived books with supernatural heroes. Today, we're talking specifically about Encantu, mighty chieftain of the forgotten Swirly tribe, the Moses of his people, leader of the revolt against Pharaoh Aram Set, the man damned to eternal life and imprisonment. I'm your co host, Matt Howell.
I'm your other host, Jacob Balcom.
Thank you for joining us this week on YouTube. Feels like it's been forever. I haven't seen you on YouTube, Jacob, since 2023.
Wow. Is that true?
Gotta get the dad joke out of it. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't even know if that's true.
Yeah, I'm like, did you do the research on that? Did you do the work?
No, I'm
back up that dad joke.
No, I'm the face. I'm just the face. Thanks for joining us this week, everybody. I'm super excited to talk about this issue we're going to be going over. If you're caught up on the show, you know that Jacob and I have been having a Isabella-sance and loving what Tony and Val are doing together on this title and loving where they're taking it, and just really kind of bowled over by how this thing has done a 180 from our dejection after Gerber left to being completely charmed by what Tony Isabella is doing as a writer right now. So I can't wait to get going. I'm actually going to read the next issue tonight because I'm actually that invested in this. Jacob?
Yeah, it's shocking. And this is one of those times where I'm glad we were wrong. This is good. Like, what if we had to slog through? Like, what if Isabella just kept getting worse? Like, that would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
But no, he's gotten so good. And just I think pairing with Val, Tony, I really feel, and we've talked about this before, that Tony's a bit of a chameleon. If he kind of mirrors who he's paired with. And so if he's paired with the Dick Ayers, he's going to act like it's 1957. And if he's paired with Val Mayrick, who's just an incredible artist and not an ancient man at the time of this writing. So yeah, I think that the two of them work together amazingly.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's great, I think, great kind of insight, like a chameleon. Like it's almost like jazz musicians, right? Like they give back the energy they get from the person they're improvising with or whatever. That same kind of thing. That totally makes sense to me. One note, we got a comment from our friend Tony Iupi, who is a PAC member and a really talented artist, by the way. I suggest you follow him on Instagram. His account is stupid_sketchbook, and his art is gorgeous.
It is.
And whenever he posts something, it gets better and better. Like each thing is just like, it's like the monolith from 2001 has visited him between each posting. It's fucking amazing. And I really hope to get some more of his stuff. So, he pointed out, he is studying the art of comics. And what we were talking about last time, Jacob, which was I called it a sequential dissection, where you take a vista and you divide it up with gutters and you show action happening over time through a vista broken up into panels. And I said, let's call that a sequential dissection because we've been talking about it since Werewolf by Night and no one has corrected us on what it's called or told us what it's called. And then Tony chimed in and said, oh, that's called a polyptych. So polyptych, Polyptych, polyptych. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go. All right. It's I like that. I did like yours though. I mean, I know I liked your what is it? Sequential dissection?
Yes. And the only thing, and I commented back to him and said, I like that. Thank you very much. I would say there might be wiggle room for a modification of polyptych or whatever that indicates that there is time passing. Because I was speaking specifically about that phenomenon in comics art, where it is a fixed space and they're manipulating the medium of comics to show time passing and events happening within one vista, one scene. Mm-hmm. So like he sent us an example on Discord. If you're on our Discord, you could probably see that. But it was a full page divided up into 9 panels, and it was a portrait of I think it was from like Neil Gaiman's like Sandman or something. But it was a portrait of a woman, and it was divided up into 9 panels. And your eyes go along and read the text boxes that are in them, and that's totally poly. I get it, more than one. But I was speaking specifically about this time moving through it. Mm-hmm. He also threw out another term that I didn't know, which is called a game board. When the whole, and this you'll see this in Mad Magazine, you'll see this on Sunday Comics, like whatever, like when it's one big drawing and there's like a sequence stuff like moving through it, like Family Circus or something like that, where it's like Billy's going through the yard and he's doing the thing, and your eyes are following this feature as he's going through. That's called game boarding. I thought that was awesome. I did not know that term either.
Oh no, this is great insight. I'm so glad.
Yeah, so it's like Chutes and Ladders, you know what I mean? That same type of thing where it's like it's all one big thing that you travel through uh, by points. So cool. Thank you, Tony, very much. I appreciate that insight. Somebody settled that 3-year long riddle for us.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yes, it has. Okay, so we have a little bit of a bit of back matter here. If you recall, last time we were showing off our fancy schmancy water bottle, and I said, "Hey, anybody who wants to leave a comment, hopefully a like as well, but leaves a comment and tells us who their favorite character is so far this season and why." Briefly on the last video, you can randomly win a water bottle sent to you by Matt J. Howell. And so that's going to happen right now. We got some good comments, so I thought we could kind of go over those real fast. So
Nice.
thank you for participating, folks. Again, the engagement, I'm not going to do the whole algorithm because I'm not a YouTuber. I don't give a shit to go into the fucking math, and I don't know it. So all I know is when people engage with your video, it boosts it up and other eyes get on it. And we'd like more eyes on our stuff. So that's what we're looking for. So anytime you can do that, it helps. So our friend Jared said, as he said before, he's been very vocal about this on Discord. Brother Voodoo's his favorite. He's a scholar who becomes a champion of the supernatural. That's radical. His entrances, backed by drums and flame, are always badass. But the living mummy is close on his heels. Jared, no complaints there.
No.
Our friend Glenn said it has Brother Voodoo also. He's cool. He has a great costume and power set. And as we all know, he does make a killer entrance. Our new friend Patrick said, "Great show, guys. Gotta say, the Living Mummy is my favorite so far. Brother Voodoo is pretty cool, but ironically, the Mummy is somehow a more human and sympathetic character." Very interesting insight. One thing we loved about Brother Voodoo is Jericho Drum is super stoic, but that makes him that kind of cool, detached hero. Like he's a tough guy kind of hero, but he's a tough guy with his power set and his role as being like this barrier between evil magic and the humans, right? The rest of the populace.
Mhm.
Whereas Living Mummy definitely has this tragic element to this guy that can't be denied. The appeal to us, we've talked about it a lot. I mean, he's when Gerber wrote that second issue, he was Hamlet. I mean, wandering around Central Park, wondering about the point of existing. Our friend Jason Finestone said, it might just be because he read this issue for that last episode, but Living Mummy is currently his favorite protagonist. He looks a lot more threatening and capable of doling out a real smackdown than mummies typically are, and he's actually got a fleshed out pre-mummy backstory, which I love too. I love diving back and seeing his living life, and I love that he is not a dust bunny and was walking around and groaning. He's a feeling, thinking, and physical character, so that's cool.
Yeah, it's not a shock. I mean, it was a little bit of a shock to us as we kept going on with the Living Mummy, especially once Isabella and Merrick started, firing on all cylinders. Yeah, I mean, as much as we loved Brother Voodoo, and we still love Brother Voodoo, but I don't know, the Living Mummy is it's the whole package in a way that I didn't expect it ever to be. This mummy, his backstory, all of it just makes you really feel for him, makes him a really sympathetic character. But yeah, fucking awesome.
Yeah. Letty, hi Letty. You said that it's kind of hard to choose, but after this issue, Living Mummy is kind of your favorite. Story is unique in some way, and you like the fact that he's a mummy trying to be human again, and because the writing is easy to feel connected with this monster. So yeah, I mean, again, the writing, all the great monsters to me have humanity to them, and so he is by far the most human monster we've met, I think, in our travels together. And then I think this is Jesse said, he's also loving the Living Mummy. Brother Voodoo was really going to be my jam, but ever since Supernatural Thrower 7 and his time on the park bench, which we were just talking about, the mummy is head and shoulders above the rest, even when he's sitting. The last issue seems to have been pretty influential for one of my all-time faves, Watchmen, with its parallel panel structure and the mummy's concept of time. Oh, that's cool. Really enjoying what Jacob and Matt are doing, as always. Thank you very much. I think that call out, I think he's talking about the how Encantu did his rite of passage for the leadership of the tribe, and then we saw what's her name, Racha or whatever it was, doing the same battle, same panel layout. Very cool call out. Good call.
Yeah, damn. Absolutely.
All right, we ready to see who gets this thing?
Let's do it.
All right. That is Letty. Letty, I'm sending that to you, even though you're international. You're a great friend of the show, and I'm sending that to you. So you're getting a water bottle with some stickers in it.
You're worth it, Letty.
So worth it. So worth it. We'll do stuff like this in the future. So if you missed out, don't feel bad. And Jesse, I owe you a water bottle already anyway. I'm sending that tomorrow. So there you go. Cool. All right. Are you ready, Jacob? I think that's all of our business.
I think that is all of our business. And yeah, I'm super ready. Let's do it.
Right on. So we are talking about Supernatural Thrillers number 13, featuring the Living Mummy, cover dated June of 1975. And this cover is Gil Kane and Mike Esposito. And I decided, Jacob, that they worked together a lot, right? This is the two guys that were a pair for a lot of their work.
Well, yeah, Gil Kane, but I think it's Ross Andrew.
It's
and
Andrew
Mike
that
Esposito that you're thinking of. But yeah, Esposito worked a lot with Kane, though, especially on covers.
Okay. Well, I was going to start calling him Kane Esposito, but if they don't, I was confusing him for Ross Andrew. So they don't get a couple name.
All right.
But I dig this cover, man. This is so cool. I shared one that went at auction about 20 years ago. That was the original art that Gil Kane passed on to somebody else, and he hand colored it with it looked like markers. And I have no idea what that went for at auction, but I can't imagine having that all colored by Gil Kane. This, I don't know how big that is, 2 feet by, 1 feet or whatever that size of that board is.
Oh my God, that was unreal to see that image. It was like hand colored by Gil Kane. Yeah.
Yeah. So this to me, subject wise, smacks a little bit of that. Gil and Mike got an assignment, like, we need some mummy covers. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like it's divorced from what goes on inside. I would even go so far as to say this does not happen inside. This looks like a very, I'm going to have a sip of tea for that.
Mm-hmm.
This seems like a very stock horror mummy setup. So we have this background. I love this angle, by the way. Like, we're at a rat's eye view. I don't know if that's an accidental reference to what happens inside this issue, but it's almost like you're a rat inside of a tomb, and there's people walking towards you. So you just see like calves and thighs of these explorers wearing like, adventurer clothing or whatever, or explorers clothes. And then in the background, we see that the mummy has reached out and grabbed a man and a woman out from the party and pulled them into a chamber inside of this stone passageway as they're dropping their torches, and one's being choked by the mummy so he can't gasp out. Meanwhile, the woman's had her mouth covered by the mummy so she can't scream. Very straight up horror cover for something that doesn't reflect where this book is at all.
No, it doesn't. We've seen this once before. I think it was 2 or 3 issues ago, where it was just one of those stock. I think the last time this happened, it was the mummy like fighting everything he had fought in the last like 4 issues or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But also just not really happened in the issue. And it could have been used for anything. This one I think is even more stock footage than anything we've seen before. But also, it's Gil Kane and Mike Esposito, so it's great. And you're right, the vantage point that we're at, the everything from like a rat's eye view that you're talking about, really, really cool.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty stock. This almost seems like something like could have been an order for a reprint from an Atlas era like horror book, like, you know what I mean, like when they were doing all those reprints. Like it's that divorced from the subject matter.
Yeah, I love Jason Finestone says Door can't stop him.
Never could, never will. Okay, so this is absolutely perfect to me as far as like execution. I mean, like I said, the composition's great, the angle's awesome, inking is great from Esposito. I have 0 complaints about it, other than that it just seems to be unrelated to the issue.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree. Great cover. Nothing to do with the issue. So, let's dive into the issue.
Right on.
All right. So, title of our story is A Separate War. And this is, so the title is it's a pun based on John Knowles, A Separate Peace, which is, it's about a boys' boarding school, I think in England during World War II. And it's a little cringy title to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Have you read that?
No, I haven't.
I read that book in junior high.
Yeah, I thought that's what I thought. I'm like, it's like a junior high, like an eighth grade kind of book that you would read.
Yeah, it's a good book from what I remember, but yeah, that did not make that connection at all. Thank you for calling out the punny title there.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, you know how we love puns. So
Yeah,
yeah,
big fan.
not neither of us are big fans of puns. Anyhow, so our cast of creators this issue, we have Tony Isabella and Val Mayerick, writer, storytellers, artist. Dan Green is inker, Karen Mantlo is letterer, Janice Cohen colorist, and Len Wein editor. So we have a different inker. This is Dan Green. Now we've had Dan Green. I think we've talked about Dan Green and seen his work a couple times. But just to go over a little bit of his stuff before, he got his start in October of 1972 over at DC with pencils and inks on a backup story in Tarzan 213. He was very busy. I know him best from the 70s and 80s work on Uncanny X-Men and New Mutants. He inked comics till just a few years ago. I think we last saw him, I think in Marvel Spotlight 23. He was inking over Sal's pencils in the Trog Father Darklight issue.
Sweet.
And yeah, so that was the last time we saw him. Marvel Spotlight 23 featuring Son of Satan. So yeah, and you have some slides that you got of some of Dan Green's work, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, we'll take a look at these before we dive into this actual
Yeah.
cover here. I think I put them in this order. So this is Dan Green. Unfortunately, he just passed away after a long illness this last summer in August, at 70 years old. So he started working, I believe, in 74, Jacob, around then. Oh, that's his first Marvel gig, I think, was 74.
His first Marvel gig, October of 72 is his first comics gig.
Okay. So, yeah, pretty amazingly talented guy. One thing I did read was that as far as John Byrne was concerned, that was his favorite inker for his pencils. He loved Dan's inks on his pencils. And
He's great.
Yeah, so I mean, here he is inking Power Man and Iron Fist, some X-Men. And he is associated with 80s X-Men titles. Who's that, Silvestri? Or who's that artist that did
I think that's Silvestri.
I think it's Silvestri. And here's him inking a John Romita Jr. Spidey. He painted a DeMatteis Doctor Strange graphic novel called Into Shambhala. I mean, just look at this art here. Have you read this, Jacob? I haven't seen it.
No, I didn't even know it existed.
I didn't
so
either.
Yeah, I have to get this. It looks amazing.
Yeah, it almost looks like Charles Vess type of like stuff, right? I mean, it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, crazy.
So let's field a question here that's been coming up before you move on to describe this splash. People are confused by the bottom of the image here. People are saying, is that Encantu's hand or Ron's hand? I believe it's Ron's because he had his hands burned to shit holding burning scrolls while putting out the mummy's fire. The bandages look newer, and just the position where he is, it just seems like a weird place for Encantu's hand to be. What do you think, Jacob?
I don't know. I thought it was Ron's hand because they got so badly burned last issue. I mean, it's a weird angle for it to be in Encantu's hand. It makes a little more sense for Ron, but I don't know. I mean, it's not 100% clear.
I mean, they're not spooning.
No, they're not spooning.
Pretty intimate. My only gripe with Janice's colors throughout this is I think that she got his bandages right on this splash. And then she disregarded them the rest of the issue, which I thought was a disservice.
It is. And you know, Janice Cohen, we've seen her a few times before, and yeah, she hasn't really colored all that much at this point. Her first comic credit on colors is Red Wolf 9 from September of 73. She's the daughter of Saul Brodsky, who is, very famous. We knew him from Marvel, and then he's also the Sky in Skywald comics.
Right on.
And Janice is kind of most famous for her colors in the Star Wars comics and Howard the Duck. But she is, I don't know, looking her up, she has hundreds and hundreds of credits on GCD. She was extremely busy through the 70s and 80s. But most importantly, Matt, she did colors on the backup story in Giant Size Werewolf #4, When the Moon Dripped Blood. She colored Brad Wrangle, or Brad Wrangler, as I think it is. But oh my God, yeah. So she went on to marry DC editor Mike Carlin. Then she became a realtor, and they seem very happy. She seems really cool. And honestly, I think she probably has more coloring credits as Linda Lessman and Petra Goldberg combined.
Oh, wow.
She's hundreds of credits. Like, she worked for a long time and did a great job. Yeah, I have some issues with her colors on this issue specifically, but no, she had a great career and did a lot of good work.
I think overall in this issue, her colors are dynamite.
Yeah.
That's why seeing Ron's hands unbandaged the rest of the issue kind of bummed me out, because the rest of her stuff is like, wow, cool choice,
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, like you say, we open on the splash page showing Ron and the mummy. They're kind of peering around a corner at a group of armed men, obviously under the sway of the elementals. And just to get us right back into here, the narration is Cairo has fallen to the elementals. Those who do not submit to their rule are hunted down and destroyed. Two of the hunted, American anthropologist Ron McAllister. Do we know his last name?
I think that got introduced just now or at the very end of last issue.
I think you're right. And his most strange companion. You watch them cautiously. The tall one carries about him the smell of the tomb, his companion of fear. There is likewise fear in those who hunt them. This does not concern you, however, so you merely step back into the shadows and wait. So yeah, there is this very interesting narrator that we're going to discover throughout this issue. So yeah, pretty great. But I think on the whole, I think this opening splash page is great. I think Encantu's face is amazing. And I love the colors on this. I love the kind of strange orange of the wall. And I love the angle that it's at. I just think it's a great opening to an issue.
Totally agree. I love that canted angle. Like it's like in the alley with them. Like it's just having it be a little Dutch angle just kind of gives you the sense that like shit's gone sideways. Things are not right. Yeah, it's amazing. And the coloring, the mummy's coloring on his wrappings are gorgeous.
Yeah.
I love this first page. And for me, a recurring theme throughout this with Tony and Val together seem to really be stretching everything. And this first page of narration here is an example of where maybe overextending themselves with having different colored narration boxes and multiple poly narrators. I don't know if this pays off or not, but we'll get to that as we go.
Yes, we will.
God damn, great page. And can I say before we move on, I was hoping to illustrate with those Dan Greens as examples of him inking different people's art. That one thing that I love about him, like look at this issue of Encantu, like you were saying, like this is almost like when Val inks himself.
It is.
And one thing I noticed about Dan Green is his inks seem to elevate, to enhance a penciler's work, not interpret it or alter it, or it's not a guidepost for him to do his own thing on. It seems like he's very, you know what I mean? Like that John Romita Jr. Spidey, that looks like JR inked it. Like,
yeah,
it seems like he's almost a chameleon. Everything he does is really fucking good, but it seems like he knows how to lay back in the cut and not take over and just fucking play a ripping, shredding solo over a goddamn thing he does.
Yes.
So I always admire that quality.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so on the next page, we get this encounter here. As you saw on the first page, there were some marauders going out and looking around, and Ron and Encantu were hiding from them. And now they're talking to each other. It's Hamid and Ahmed. And one of them is saying, hey, keep that flamethrower close, man. That's the only thing that works on Encantu. And then we get on this row here some really nice, again, thank you, Tony, for not vomiting flashbacks. Using a little bit of really economical narration boxes, tells us who this guy is and all we need to know about him. The mummy, the king Encantu. Now, now he's officially the king. He was like the chief of the tribe or whatever. Now they're officially saying he was the king after his father passed. He fought tyranny here. Nothing has changed, just the tyrants' names. I mean, there's almost some anti-war stuff in here. It's very like Gerberian, like just like little nudge, nudge, wink, wink, gotta kind of laugh to stop yourself from crying type of like commentary on war that I thought was really welcome from Tony. So And Kantu pops out and they see him. I mean, that's like the only echo of like anything even related to the cover is like Encantu's hiding in a passageway. But other than that, that was a big fake out. So they're shocked when they see him. Um, and I thought Encanto looked a little odd in this first panel here in the middle row, where it's almost like his eyes have color, like his eye sockets around his eyes. I don't know. I thought that
It,
was weird.
yeah, this is the weirdest depiction of him. I mean, I don't know. He looks cartoony, like the mummy on the cereal box kind of thing.
Totally.
So, yeah. Interesting. Jackson Overstreet is saying, like, do you think they did this Marvel method or by script? For this one, I don't know. I mean, I feels Marvel method to me, but I think there's questions with that. Jason Feinstone agrees, but yeah, I really feel like Isabella, he is stretching out. I think he's almost experimenting in this. And I don't know if that's Val bringing it out in him or if he's just, I think Isabella might be getting more confident. I think we've been seeing him get more confident in his writing, especially through the Living Mummy stuff. I mean, because I feel like this book, well, obviously it sold because it has more issues than any of the other characters that we've talked about this season. So there was some sales figures behind it, not for very long, but for at least a little bit. And yeah, so I think he really liked doing this book. I think he really liked working with Val. And so I just saw this issue as him, yeah, trying to stretch out, trying to experiment a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to describe this. I think that's exactly what's happening. So Encanto, again, not a shuffling, moaning corpse. He is alive and active, and he dashes out. He's worried. He's worried about Ron because Ron's a student. He's not a fighter, and
No.
Encanto is a warrior. He led the people to a slave revolt. So
Yeah.
they freak out. They say, "Hey, he's charging us." They start shooting. So I got to have some tea there because when you shoot at a mummy,
shooting at a mummy. I'm drinking a Moscow Mule, so I'm gonna have a little bit of that.
I'm having chamomile tea because I'm being boring after work after this. So yeah, the two guys are shooting at him. The guy with the flamethrower is standing by, and the narration here is interesting. So basically, Isabella's kind of saying like they are not necessarily these willing go rah rah elementals guys. They're more doing this in the interest of themselves and their progeny, their young, their children, whoever at home, like their loved ones. Like we're just acting on behalf of the tyrants to save our own skins and those that we love. So yeah, interesting. And then the last note here, as Encanto is falling to the ground and is being pelted by machine gun bullets, there's that black box again. The noise is painful. It's like vermin.
Yeah, Jason says, didn't they just say the only weapon that worked against him was a flamethrower? But they still decided to,
yeah, your no prize is on its way.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah,
I guess it's like that expression when you all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah,
that's kind of applies here.
That's very true. All right, so yeah, next page. Yeah, and Kantu just backhands this guy so hard his teeth fly out of his mouth.
Yes,
so I was like, oh fuck, there's some weird, like pretty graphic violence in the last issue and in this issue. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, oh shit, like this is, something like this. Where yeah, the guy's just teeth are fucking flying out of his mouth. And then he picks up the next guy and just hurls him against the wall, which I thought at first probably breaking his neck, even though I see the guy that gets up. I can't remember. One of the guys gets back up, but yeah. And then we switch focus to well, no, we're still having these black text box going, which I do want to read some of them. It says, it frightens you. You must wait very quietly until the tumult has died away. Then perhaps they will all go away, leaving you to go about your own business. And at the bottom of the page, guy comes through with that good old flamethrower, and he's like, "You'll pay for what you did to them, monster. Pay in fire," which I did like that. And yeah, bottom panel says Ron McAllister is not a warrior. He is an anthropologist, a student of man. But he's reaching towards that gun. So yeah, we've also seen that Ron has kind of had to adapt and become a warrior. But he's a scholar. So, and he's a cool guy and obviously can hold his own. But he's a scholar. You know, he does. I don't know if he's ever fired a weapon before. Like, so this is a big deal to him, and he's been kind of reluctant up to this point, but he's gonna have to pick it up.
Yeah, he said last issue that he
Yeah.
wasn't even in the ROTC. I mean, he's
Yeah.
done none of this stuff. He is fully an academic. He's a thinking man. So this is all alien to him. And this issue is really quite an interesting arc for him as far as that goes. Uh, Another point for me in the Isabella checklist is that there's character development all throughout this issue, I felt. So again, here, two panels with Ron in them and his hands not bandaged. And again, I think it's might be just picking at nits, but for me, it was more like I might be overreading this, but I thought that was a cool in that first splash panel when his hand is bandaged and covered properly. It's almost like a visual cue that ties him to Encanto. They have
Mm-hmm.
something in common physically in the way they're depicted that kind of was a cool like pairing them together because they have been kind of paired off and have these adventures together in this issue. So when you don't kind of follow through on that with the color, it just kind of undercuts that. And again, I might be reading way too much into it, but that's kind of how it read to me.
No, I think you have a really good point there. I just wish that the bandages in these subsequent panels would have just been colored a slightly different than his flesh, just for a
Yeah.
tiny little bit of gradation. But yeah, I totally agree. I don't think you're reading into things too much at all.
And I just want to back up before we move on and look at that first panel where he's knocking that guy's teeth out.
Yeah.
That is one of the most beautiful depictions of the mummy I've seen and I don't know how
Right.
long. I mean, that is
It's
absolutely perfect. The weight of the ink, the proportion, right? Like his fist is all big, like Hellboy big. Like he just looks amazing.
yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, Jason says the same thing. I want to see a buddy comedy about Encanto and Ron. And yeah, I absolutely agree.
Totally. Okay, so Ron is reaching for the machine gun. He's a student of man. And unfortunately, not of weapons. And he says, I can't let him kill Encanto. Butta. Bullets fired at high velocity, though, into a tank of highly combustible gas tend to cause this. This is dark comedy.
Oh my
here. I mean, I don't know.
God.
Maybe it's not even meant to be darkly comic. Maybe it's meant to just be matter of fact and dry. But this is like fucking Coen brothers, like
Yeah.
random violence out of nowhere. So this guy, his tank of fuel for his flamethrower explodes on his back. He bursts into flame. Ron is rightfully so horrified.
Yeah.
He is not a warrior. And then we get this panel. It says he looks at the burning, still twitching remains of Hamid Barim. He
God.
isn't much of anything. Good God.
Twitching.
That is horrifying. That's like in the Thing after they take the torch to it and they're just standing out in the snow looking at this horrible, grotesque thing of flesh. God.
Oh my
And
God.
so the bottom of the page here, we get this like how this affects Ron, which is a nice little just pause. And this isn't a war comic. This isn't whatever where you just punch a guy's head in and move on or blow up a tank and don't think twice. This is a thinking, feeling person. And so he starts immediately going, he's anguished by this. No man should die like that. What right did I have? Right. So then we get this strange graphic treatment of this beautiful moment where Ron collapses on the ground, and it says a kind of silence wraps itself around an insignificant alley in Cairo, and the silence is not broken until the sobs that convulse within a man's soul are released in a scarcely heard choke. And it's interesting because it's this field, right, of unused space, and the text just sits in there to be highlighted. And then within that, all we have is what is like lit up essentially by yellow, and that's just what's important. Encanto, Ron, and the gun that caused this death.
What a weird, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that, really. I mean, it's such a strange choice. It works beautifully, but yeah, I don't know how they arrived at that, but it's so cool.
Yeah, it's almost like, I mean, the first thing I thought of was like, is it like a cell? Like in like
Yeah.
a D&D map? Like we're looking down at a graph and like you're like graphing something out, or is it like, and then I just had to come to terms like, I think it's literally just Val saying, let's just zero in on what's important. Like we say all the time, when something is high priority or a crisis, things in the background, the details fall away. This is even that to the nth degree. Ron has just killed another human being. And
Yeah.
so you don't even need to see a piece of dirt in the street or an empty tin can or a rat, whatever. There's nothing. All there is Ron and his anguish and the thing that the tool that caused it.
Yeah, it's really intense and really beautiful. It's just,
Hmm.
yeah, such a strange choice. Yeah, Letty says strange choice to focus on the main elements, but it worked pretty well. I agree. You know,
I
Jackson
agree.
Overstreet says it's isolating the emotions between them together, which, yeah, I think it's another great way of saying it.
And this is an issue full of these choices. I feel like
Yeah.
just some really interesting stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you and I over the years have talked about this. We love big swings. Like I just love it. I'd rather see a big swing miss than just have a boring by the numbers comic. And
100%.
I think there's a ton of big swings in this. Some of them land better than others, but I don't think any of them is a miss. Like I think it's a really cool issue. It's a really unique issue.
Yeah, I think on the next page we're going to see the end of one of these
That's right.
little reaches. That I don't know if it works 100%, but
I don't know if it works 100%, but we're going to go there with them. So, yeah. So on the next page, the narrator switches on this page. We see Encantu kind of leading Ron away, and I thought this was interesting because we figure out why they left. You know, they had been hiding, and so Ron is saying, "Come on, Encantu, let's get out of here. All this pain, all this hurting, and why?" He says, "Because we ran out of food at our hiding place, and somebody spotted you while I was buying the stuff." He says, like, seemed like a damn little reason for a man to die. And we see a little something kind of fall out of Ron's knapsack there. And yeah, the narration goes on and says, the smell of burnt flesh that lingers over this alley offends you. You almost depart, but then you see that they are leaving and you continue your search without fear. A small piece of bread falls from the sack as the human lifts it to his shoulders. Your search is over. And so, yeah, we realize that this is a rat. He says, life has been hard as of late. Food has been scarce. It has been a struggle just to survive each day. But you've been fortunate tonight. And while this is happening, we see the guy that got his teeth knocked out. He's coming to. He says, the mummy, he's escaping. And he's saying, I can hardly see them, head spinning. My arm feels as heavy as a boulder, but I've got to try. I've got to. And then there's this, I mean, as brutal as this panel is, it's really amazing. Like the art on this is incredible, and just the strange, like, it almost doesn't look like a rat. It looks like a weird, like, leopard rat. Like the face is really strange. But yeah, we realize that, yeah, our narrator has been a rat. And the final bit of narration, it says, the bullets tear you in half, their impact knocking the precious morsels from your paws. You don't even have time to wonder why fate has been so cruel to you. End of chapter 1.
okay,
So,
chat's blowing up here.
yeah, okay, let's see what's going on here. So yeah, Glenn Lash says, I would have liked the rat perspective better if he wasn't killed. Maybe. I mean, I don't know if it would have lasted the entire issue or if this was a good time for him to kind of peace out, but yeah, it was brutal. I mean, it was a brutal murder of our rat narrator, which is what Patrick is saying.
So, yes, let's look at some more of these comments here before I chime in with my thoughts. Jackson says nothing is safe in this issue. I think that's where I'm leaning with this idea. David is a very articulate and self-aware rat.
Yeah, it's true.
Templeton. Letty says, R.I.P. Mr. Rat. No, well, now I'm going to just picture him as having, what was the voice of Templeton Rat?
It was,
Paul Lind.
Yeah, it was Paul Lind. That's right. Fuck.
Oh now I need to have AI do all of his narration for me.
Yep.
Yeah, Glenn says he would have preferred a little more poignant rat narration as he exited the story. For me, this kind of felt like I thought that Tony was reaching for like a parallel thing of like Ron just said, this dude's dead, and the only reason we even encountered this guy is because we ran out of food and we had to leave our safety, our shelter, to go out and find some food by rummaging around, with backpacks looking for cans of food and whatever. And the rat is doing the same thing. So Ron went out because of necessity, because of the threat of war and what's going on, and it's a risky situation. He went out, a guy died because he encountered him. The rat's trying to go out and find food, and just it's a coin toss. War is hell. People are dying left and right. Animals, everybody, like Jackson said, like everybody's a possible victim.
Yeah, well, all of Cairo has either been turned into soldiers or scavengers. And
Yep,
so that's the parallel Tony's drawing with the rat, like you were saying. And so, yeah, I think it almost works. It, like
almost.
85% works for me, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Not 100%.
Nope.
So yeah, chapter one. So this is, if you forgot, this is our second issue of this being a full 18-page comic story without any backup. So Tony has kind of fallen into that "If the Living Colossus" thing where he wants to have chapters, and but thank God he's not falling back in all of the Atlas era ways. He's keeping it very modern for the most part, except for the chapter breaks.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up At the Living Colossus. There couldn't be more of a difference between those books. I mean, I know it's written by the same guy, but it doesn't, I mean, it's shocking it's written by the same guy, honestly.
Yeah, totally. So chapter two starts the next page. You get to see here this full page shot that we have interesting panels. So that seems to be a Val thing with these strange panels with these 45-degree angles. And then there's the one that's shaped almost like a house, which I thought was really cool. But um, it starts off thousands of miles away in America. We're in a random person's house, and it turns out that this is Colonel Fred Buchanan. He's sitting and watching the news today. And we find out through this page, through narration, that the Cairo incident, or whatever we want to call this, the bubble around Cairo and the elementals taking everything over, has been kept pretty much under wraps, which is pretty crazy for Cairo being one of the major cities of the world. But it was not. They kept it out of the press for a while, and now it is out, and so the public knows about it. We cut back to Cairo, and we see Dr. Scarab and Ron and Janice and Encantu sitting around. I thought this was a radio, right? I mean, it's them listening to a radio.
Yeah, it seems like, yeah, kind of a radio that's sitting on some, maybe it's a television, I don't know, but it looked like one of those old radios, like sitting on something.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, because so they're sitting around. I thought it was them sitting around listening to it, and it's basically saying they're thousands of miles apart, almost opposite sides of the world, and are both listening to the same broadcast, which is the updates on what is going on. And it reminds us that Dr. Scarab is trying to figure out how to get the Ruby Scarab to work, because that is the only thing that can stop the elementals and this mad power grab and this tyrannical rule over this part of the world that they're doing. So then we get this nice, strangely shaped panel. Again, I don't quite get if it has a function or if it just looks cool, but we are, the reader, are in the perspective of inside the TV set looking out at the family watching the news. And on the right side, it's like we're inside the radio looking at the speaker at our friends listening to the radio. Such is the miracle of modern communications. It says you can listen with interested apathy to the events which seem likely to crush the other. So it's like the people in America are listening, and it just seems like, oh, that's weird.
Weird.
That's going on over in Egypt. And people in Egypt are listening to, like, are we going to be saved? Are we going to die? Are they going to, is there any hope? Help?
Yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, you're right. They're just like crowded around like an emergency radio and stuff. I like Jason says, looks like they're at a diner jukebox.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Which
those little table side jukeboxes. I forgot about those.
Yeah. All I could think of is the one in Ghost World, and they're at Wowsville.
Oh,
Yeah.
I always think of that one. Isn't there a Shatner Twilight Zone where he's? Oh no, that's a fortune telling.
That's the fortune telling machine. In my top 3 Twilight Zones, I have to say, I absolutely love that one. But yeah, no, really cool page, and again, big swings. It's just that I mean, they're trying this really highbrow stuff they're attempting, and some of it really lands, and some of it doesn't. But God, I love the effort they're putting into this. And this isn't a nothing book, but compared to the big books at this time, this is a nothing book. So again, maybe we'll get a chance to figure out or to hear what editorial was really doing with the Living Mummy. I mean, who knows? But again, we've theorized throughout this entire run, because all we've really talked about are books that kind of flew underneath the radar, is that, yeah, maybe editorial didn't have a whole lot of time to pay a lot of attention to this. So maybe these books were a place where artists and writers could experiment.
Yeah. Jackson says, maybe this is like a commentary on like maybe it's like watching Vietnam at home, which is a good point because I was thinking that same thing where it's like the Vietnam War was the first war that was televised, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the Korean War, there wasn't enough TV and enough homes. World War II, you would see reels, newsreels at the theater, but those were just sanitized updates. You know what I mean? Vietnam War was the first one where there's embedded journalists there sending reels to daily of stuff going on, and there was some crazy shit that got across the airwaves. People saw very unpolished views of war. So I think that's a good call, Jackson.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, and Jason says, or any foreign war at any moment in time. Well, I would argue, Jason, that any time after Vietnam. Yes.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. So yeah. All right. So this next page is also really, really cool. It's super cool. So it has scenes from the television on the left, and it has like the shocked faces of our heroes on the right. And so, the newsman is describing like a city under siege on two fronts, with hellfire. Hellfire is single-handedly forcing Israeli troops to withdraw from the Suez Canal. And then I love. Okay, so on that second one, I love that. Oh, we're like, oh, there's the Mudmen. The elementals have unleashed the Mudmen that we had seen before. And so I was like, oh, that's great. And so, we see the Mudmen, beating the shit out of the Sudanese troops. And then it reads, okay, this is crazy. So it reads, the creatures are commanded by the elemental known as Magnum, whose strength seems to rival that of the Incredible Hulk. I thought you would love all the references to canon here. Mm-hmm. And says, meanwhile, resistance in Egypt has now been totally crushed by the efforts of the third elemental, Hydron, self-proclaimed Lord of the Waters. Though UN forces plus super-powered groups such as the Avengers have been mobilized, there's a great deal of hesitation about utilizing them. No one wants to interfere in the politically tense Middle East situation without consulting all the governments involved. And all efforts to contact the Egyptian government in Cairo have met with failure. So, I mean, I know this has been like all time, but I mean, just as it is now, as it was 100 years ago, like whenever stuff like this happens, everyone's just like, ooh, okay, let's just hold back for a minute. Let's just see. We can't deploy the Avengers right now because it just might make it worse.
Right. And I think like someone was saying back there a little bit, they're also currently at this time in 1975, there is a pretty big conflict going on in the Middle East. That had kicked up, I think around 73 was when the Palestine-Israeli conflict, I think was what was going on. I might be wrong there, but I know that I did look this up to see like there was a reason why they were telling the Golem story and the Mummy story at the same time, like if there was something going on, and indeed there was, and it was on a lot of TVs at this time, so it was in the consciousness. Yeah. So people have been pointing out that that Mummy looks amazing, and there's some Wrightson in him, and a couple of people have said I totally agree.
I agree.
I can see that too. I did note that. I didn't write it down in my notes, but the first time I read through this, I was like, damn, there's some Wrightson in there. So
I love Mark Niven says, can you imagine Stan Lee writing the story in the 40s? The flamethrower explosion would be on the cover. You're right.
Oh man. So I mean, this page as a whole, though, I mean, just another example of some graphic swings, some cool, this isn't reinventing the medium or anything, but it's just a cool way to efficiently show what's going on, what the characters are seeing, and spotlighting the characters while having the middle column just be like a bunch of info dump, like you were saying, like that the Avengers are on standby. I kind of rolled my eyes when I first read that news copy.
Oh, I knew.
And then
I
was like, that's actually pretty cool because, like, I mean, this is almost kind of like, and nowadays it would have like had some dumbass crossover with, a main title you had to buy and then tie in books and blah, blah, blah. And you would, I don't know, but like, this is just kind of like acknowledging like, this is happening in the Marvel universe. Like Captain America has been briefed on this.
Yes.
and he has talked to the president and they're aware. Like, I think that's fucking cool. And I'm sure it's probably not meant to be funny like this, but my mind immediately just went to, how ridiculous the news is, where it's like, well, this guy's as strong as the Hulk. Like, Well, of
Yeah.
course, these idiots, sit around chain smoking cigarettes in the TV studio are just going to
Yeah.
say whatever the biggest thing is possible to make it seem like the biggest story. So nobody turns away. So you can sell some fucking dish soap, right, during the ads.
Yeah, but
That's
I,
TV.
I think it's funny though. David Goodwin pointed out the bottom left panel is pretty horrifying, and yeah, this is playing on television. So there's people just
Yep.
horrifyingly drowning in front of
Yep.
us. So it's fuck. Like, God, the body count and the gore and violence in this issue is just insane.
Yeah. One thing that I've been impressed with this whole arc here, this mini arc that we're in, is like we talked about this last episode. Like the gloves are off. Like
Yeah.
people are dying, and it's not just kind of off panel. Like I don't know, they're sort of burning building or whatever. Like no, that dude's drowning. Like right there on fucking TV. That is being seen in the U.S. It's being seen in fucking Japan. Like everyone's seeing this because these seeming alien type of whatever interdimensional whatever they are here just slaughtering. And I like this other thing that we get this really cool efficient way of telling the story where instead of just vomiting what's happened between last issue, we're seeing through the news and seeing the characters learn that this started in Cairo. And now the force field is starting to spread out. Now they're on the fucking border. Now they're up at the Suez Canal. Now they're down the Sudan. Like they have Egypt. They've taken over the fucking country. So these guys are like, you and I have been joking about them for weeks, how these guys are fucking losers. And we're very being quickly shown like, no, they're not. I mean, they are. They're fucking idiots, but they're horrible and fucking real and incredibly dangerous.
Yeah,
just like
I know.
real tyrants, right?
Seriously, no, it's amazing because yeah, we were just being like, oh, these fucking schmucks, like what the hell? They're not gonna do anything, and then they just go insane and become brutal. So yeah, I did not expect that. So it's it's great.
Yeah. Okay. Fair point, Glenn. This was at a time when the news was considered like an institution that's job was to inform, and it wasn't about editorializing or spinning or whatever. That's true. We're a few years away from cable starting doing that, and Roger Ailes subverting what the word news even means for the American public.
Yeah.
All right. So the next page, we get another interesting feature that is continuing the same kind of thematic idea of conveying information and doing a vignette spotlight on an important character. So I kind of was talking a little bit about that, but it was just talking about how the force field around the capital city. On the news, they're saying it's believed that all the Egyptian leaders have been imprisoned or killed. So again, this is not just superhero punch them up dipshit stuff. They found the leaders and murdered them or thrown them into a jail. Like 100% real. And
crazy.
we get another Wrightson-y type of mummy, beautiful portrait of the mummy here. And in the black of the shadow around him, it says, "You bear no love for the Egyptian race, do you, Encantu? They enslaved your people and condemned you to your current monstrous state. But they who wronged you died 3,000 years ago. Would you blame their sons and daughters? Is slavery's heinousness dependent on the identity of the enslaved?" Interesting question. I'm not even sure if I fully understand what he was posing. I read that one a few times. It's like, is slavery's heinousness dependent on the identity of the enslaved? I still don't know if I fully understand what he's asking.
I don't know if I do either, but yeah, it's interesting. That's for sure.
Yeah. So in the next panel, we get to see that there's people like outside of the bubble, kind of looking at it, checking it out. And we see Dr. Scarab in this nice kind of panel looking straight at us like it's an album cover. Conquerors today of a country. So, and tomorrow, I love that tomorrow is set like where Dr. Scarab's eye would be in the shadow of his face in this portrait. So yeah, like I said, it started in Cairo. Now they've taken all of Egypt over. So this I would think would be giving you echoes of a Hitler or someone else like that who just starts rolling over countries and just seems to just have a path of conquering things. You are scared, aren't you, Dr. Scarab, for both your life and the life of the world. And then the latest broadcast shows a crowd gathered to see the execution of Asp and Uldan and Zephyr. So they're yelling and whatever. It says the crowd is varied. Some are calling for mercy, others for a more rapid death. So that's just a slice of humanity right there. Every Whenever you have an execution, there's going to be a crowd of people. Some of them are protesting, and some of them are there with popcorn and fried chicken. Um, so we get a nice little portrait here. I love this portrait of Janice. She's beautiful. We find them both looking. It says, Ron has been silent since his return from the food finding mission. And this worries you, doesn't it, Janice Carr? I think that's the first time we've got her surname. Is it?
Yeah, we get a lot of names that we've
Yeah.
never heard before.
And then it says, this war is changing the man you love. And can such a change be for the better? So she's already, I mean, this is her lover. So she's already picked up on the fact that Ron is not the same person who left to go find food. And she is saddened by whatever this Paul is over him, which is the fact that he's now a killer, even if it's by accident, manslaughterer.
Yeah, I think that once we started getting like Janice as a narrator, I'm just like, there's so many narrators in this issue. They just keep piling on, which again, I don't know if it works in every instance, but I love that they're trying this. It's so cool.
And the second person, right? A lot of you.
Yeah.
Which I don't know that Tony has done much in our stuff we've read.
No. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't know. I'm kind of just loving what they're trying and what they're doing here.
Jason's confused. Who am I? Am I in Kanto? Dr. Scarab?
Oh man, yeah, it's really funny. So, okay, next page. Yeah, we get so we open with like a giant panel of the three hostages, and again, some narration that is, we're just getting lots of little colorful tidbits about our characters. So I like that it says Interpol has identified the two males facing execution as Richard the Asp Harper and Paul Olddan, small-time international criminals. And so yeah, the three hostages we're seeing, they're being held, by these energy beams. And, they talk about the identity of the black woman who is sharing their fate is unknown, but unofficial sources say she is one of the elementals themselves. And says, suspended in midair as they are, the trio is not expected to survive the night. And so it says, Nkantu cannot understand this, but his mental link with Dr. Scarab makes the situation clear to him, which I thought was pretty cool. So I guess we didn't really think about that in a lot of ways, but I'm just like, oh yeah, the mummy doesn't understand English. He just doesn't. So I liked that he's, his weird little like mind meld with Dr. Scarab. He's able to kind of pick up, if it's not a direct translator, he's at least able to pick up Scarab processing these emotions and being like, oh shit, this. And so I did like that. But he's mad. He says he clenches his fists in helpless rage. He wants to aid Zephyr and the others, but his strength is needed here. Dr. Scarab tries to comfort the grief-stricken Janice. Ron excuses himself for a moment. And then, down at the bottom it says 4,000 miles away, Colonel Fred Buchanan sucks on a pipe and wonders when he started thinking of people as statistics. I'm like, we just, I don't know, like Buchanan seems very lived in. I mean, we've seen him for like 2 panels. And I'm just like, oh yeah, this guy again. He was in the Atlas era, right? Like he's just been around for a long time. It says tomorrow he will reverse his previous stand on the Egyptian crisis, and God help the world if he's decided wrong. Then we're back to Ron and Janice. Janice is like, what are you doing with that rifle? And he says, I'm sorry, folks using that Scarlet Scarab thing to defeat Hellfire and Co. is a pipe dream. I'm going to help our friends. It says, this morning, Ron McAllister was not a warrior. Tonight, that has changed. End of chapter 2.
There was some love there while you were covering this page for seeing Zephyr, as always.
Oh, well,
and the fact that Janice is coloring Zephyr and the human skin tones and not like she's a gray.
I did love that, yeah.
We've been appreciating that the last couple issues. It feels like Bill Mantlo was the person who decided to give her human, earthly skin tones instead of strange kind of purple. That happened a lot. So people were confused by that big first panel, first of all, I was confused. When did Miles change his name to Paul?
Exactly right.
So that confused me the first read through. I was like, what? I think we had the Asp's real name before in that little bio when we got the text piece. I believe that was in there. But people were wondering how exactly is this going to kill them? Being suspended overnight like this. I was like wondering, like someone else commented, like, is it almost like the crucifixion, like where I mean, right? I mean, the nails through the extremities is not what kills you. You drown like in your own blood or something. I thought it was like
Yeah,
what
yeah.
Jesus
It's like
tells
your
you.
fluids, a bunch of fluid
Fluids,
fills your
yeah.
lungs. Yeah, and then you die. So yeah, that's
So I think
probably what
that's
it is.
what's implied here, right? It's something where it's like being in this position, suspended like this somehow with your whatever your extremities over your lungs, so somehow you probably die over time or something. I'm not sure. Fair question. So
Yeah.
I had the same questions. So I'm not criticizing. Yeah, I thought Janice looked a little dodgy here in this last panel,
A little bit.
but I mean, considering how beautiful she looked in the last panel, on the last page, just like there's quite a bit of variety here. And um, this also introduces a little bit of an issue I have with this art throughout the remainder of the issue, which is, I have no problem, Jacob, when there's a solid background, when there's a lot going on, or when you want to focus on the core subject, the main
Yeah.
subject. I feel like it gets leaned on a lot the rest of this issue.
That I
Starting
thought
here.
that was interesting too. I was wondering if is that a time crunch? Is that a like they're trying all sorts of stuff and they're taking long. Their film's going over budget. And they're just like, hey, artists, you got to wrap this shit up. It has to be done.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I would say it was they were stretching out in some other cool ways in the book, and so some of these lesser panels kind of got the short end of the stick there. If I had to guess, again, I have
I think that's
no
accurate.
insight. So the start of chapter 3, we get a full page of Hydron holding court. Yeah, he's just there being always the biggest dick. Jackson says tassels are distracting. I agree. I
Yep.
hate this motherfucker. So people are there. Supplicants are coming and asking him for things, and he's sitting on a throne of water in this courtyard on top of a fountain. So it was kind of cool, I guess, but he's a dick. So he wants to know what this guy wants. This old farmer comes up and he says, the force field around the city is also stopping water. In addition to people coming and going, water's not coming in and out. And I have a farm just outside the city limits. Can you possibly, my crops are going to die. And so he's like going, what, are you mad? Or perhaps you seek to escape from the city. Is that what you want, mortal? So obviously there's just an old farmer there saying, oh, I need water for my crops. And Hydron is not happy.
No.
Beautiful palace, wherever that is in the background. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, there's a lot of work went into this page. And I think especially like even the faces of the supplicants. So that farmer looks bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The colors that Janice Cohen did on the architecture.
Oh, so good. Yeah, it's crazy cool. But on the next panel, we see Hydron say, request denied. And then, funniest part of the whole issue for me, we see Ron and Encantu in disguise. So Ron, Ron has a Encantu's in a cloak, looks like the Grim Reaper. Oh my God. Yeah, not much of a disguise is what I wrote in my notes. Kind of just draws more attention to him, honestly. But yeah, goddamn, so funny. Ron is thinking, he's got the asp and the others strung up like sides of beef. They got to be hurting bad. We need some kind of diversion in order to get close enough to spring them. And then, we have, again, the elderly farmer kind of approaches Hydron. He's like, my son and I have waited 2 days to see you on this matter. All we desire is some water for our crops. And Hydron says, so all you want is water? Very well. You shall have it. And then, he just fucking drowns the guy. It tries to. And he says, as the wastes of Cairo spill obnoxiously over the old man. So it's sewer water.
Yep.
Jesus. It says his kindness escapes the notice of the elderly farmer's son, who runs to the guy. He's like, "You tyrant! All he cared about was his small farm and his family, and you've done this to him. Your reign ends here, madman." So like, way to go, kid. It's pretty fucking awesome. He's taking a page out of the Asp's book and just charging towards an elemental, ready to engage in fisticuffs. And but of course, Hydron says, "I think not, cur. Once all liquid has been evaporated from your worthless husk of a body." And then, yeah, horrifying last panel, and all the kid who looks like a desiccated old man now. It's just like, "Urgh."
Yeah, he looks like Ronald Reagan from the Genesis
Land of
spitting image
Confusion video.
Land
Yeah.
of Confusion.
Oh man.
So yeah, I like that. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go on.
I just like in this middle panel here. Hydron has big King Joffrey vibes.
Yeah, he totally does. Absolutely.
Petulant little fucker. Okay, so yeah, that's horrifying. Also,
Yeah. No, it
lots of
just
horrifying here.
yeah keeps getting scarier.
All right. So if you are ready for some more horror, this was not like the Asp where he just is like an old man. Nope, he pulled every goddamn scintilla of water out of that guy. And so the old farmer sees his son reduced to essentially bones and dust.
Oh, God.
And he says, "My son." And Ron has had enough. That tears it. He throws off his disguise, pulls out his gun. "Come on, Encantu. We're hitting these creeps now." And Encantu thinks the one called Ron, his eyes now burn with the fire of a warrior. War makes such men. And so, nothing, you can't back out of this now. So Encantu's chipping in. "Yet, as I, who have been a warrior all my human life, can tell him, it is a fire that burns from one's own soul and fed by the cries of the ones you must slay in battle." So we have some nice philosophy again, like on war here. "I pray he will be able to live with those cries, for he will never be able to forget them." And he's thinking this while he's using his giant rock hands to punch and karate chop people that are swarming onto Ron. And then the bottom, Hydron has caught on to this, and I found this a little confusing. Has he seen the mummy yet, or is the crowd surging? Like, are the people that are sympathetic to the captors charging Hydron like they're done? They just saw him kill that farmer or that farmer's kid, and so they're charging him, and he's saying, "What? Some of the crowd dares attack me? Away, mortal carrion, and be thankful that I seek to kill the living mummy tonight instead of ending your paltry existences." So he's oblivious to the mummy being like 10 yards away from him right now because he's got his own shit going on. Is that
I didn't understand that either, because he's saying, well, I think he's talking about that some of the crowd that are attacking him are Ron and the mummy. Because at first I'm just like, why is Encantu basically just murdering these guys if they're also trying to attack Hydron? I really imagine, for some reason, like the mummy's power, I imagine it's the Cockney kid in Twin Peaks The Return with the Hulk hand. Like, if he punches someone, they're just goo, or they just immediately are dead.
Well, I think that when this scene first started in that splash page, I think that's what it was. It said like this is a divided crowd, right? Half of them are here. We were joking about that. Like half of them are there to see somebody get killed, and half of them are there to protest. So I think that once Hydron tried to drown an old man and then killed a young man, I think that's when they just split up and were like, "All
Okay.
right," it's like Sharks and the Jets, like it's like West Side
Yeah.
Story now. So they just all started fighting, is what I think. But
that makes sense, actually. That makes a lot more sense to me.
The last panel in 18 is not the best.
No.
Says Glenn. I agree. There was some dodgy stuff throughout here, and I'm willing to let that go when there's a lot of big swings. So I agree, though. There's some rough stuff, and throughout this, again, I was complaining a little bit about the solid colored backgrounds and a lot of these stuff that again goes throughout the rest of this issue. It seems.
Yeah. So
we do have to
okay.
make for a Twin Peaks reference. Jackson's right.
Shit. Yeah.
Been a
there
while.
we go. We need to fix that, Matt. There should be one every episode.
I know.
Which I think there was for a stretch there. We really had it going, but
Yeah,
we got to bring it back. Got to get the band back together.
I can be better.
Yeah.
I'll be best.
So yeah, on this page, Hydron approaches the mummy, saying, "I would have destroyed you from your first sign of disobedience, creature. The others stopped me, but now I'll rectify their mistake." I like how, and he's speaking now. He says, "How, Hydron? Your powers cannot affect me." And he's like, "Can't they? Think, Encantu, your bodily fluids were drained by Nephris when he condemned you to your present form, but he replaced them with a mystic liquid to sustain you through the ages." And he says, "And it is that liquid I shall drain from your body, O mighty chieftain. Drain slowly." And then, yeah, we see the mummy surrounded by a pink light. He kind of starts to fall to his knees. And yeah, he says, like, "The mummy falters. Hydron is killing him. But he fought against the Water Lord. If he dies, what chance do the rest of us have?" Then Ron, just like a badass, he's just like, "Encantu drew Hydron's attention away from me. I don't think the mother ever saw me. Too bad." And he shoots at him. And yeah, it looks like a bullet just kind of like grazes Hydron's armpit in a way. But it was enough to just make him, ugh. And I think the solid color background there works.
Yes.
That's where we like it.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, yeah, that's where you're focused in, right? Rack focused in on what's going on. So it makes sense that that is the only thing you see. Just feel like it was overused in this issue.
Yeah, I agree.
How does a glancing shot to the armpit knock an elemental out? Asks Glenn. What a baby Hydron is. He's a little bit of a baby.
It is. I mean, he's a prima donna, so he's all bluster, and but if he's not used to being attacked because he can just turn people to dust. So I'm sure, yeah, he gets grazed. And he's like, "Oh no," and faints.
That's what I'm saying, though. It's like King Joffrey gets backhanded and cries like a little, baby.
Yep,
Same thing.
That's true.
Okay, so on the next page here, this interruption, the Hydron being wounded, has stopped the strange water manacles, I guess you would call them, that was holding our some of our heroes up. So they start to fall. Scarab's pal plugged Hydron. We're free. And they collapse on the ground. Zephyr says, "Unconscious as he is, Hydron cannot maintain the energy bands, keeping us suspended in midair." That's one of those weird Scott McCloud, like, how does time work? Like,
what?
It's like Wile E. Coyote. Like, I was walking along fine until I realized there was no cliff anymore, and then I fall. Same kind of thing.
It totally is that.
And Asp says, "Old Dan, roll with the fall." He's like, "Roll with the fall? Are you?" Ugh! As he hits the ground. Again, love this comics time. And so Ron's thinking, well, if Hydron's hoods hadn't noticed me before, they sure as Harlem have now. Some of the crowd's even joining them. And he's just thwapping people with the butt of his rifle with his bandaged hands. They must be afraid of what the elementals will do in retaliation. Again, sending home that these guys are acting mostly out of self-interest, not because they are in favor of what they're doing. Mm-hmm. This bottom panel here is gorgeous, of the back of the mummy as he's just using his petrified hands to just clock people. Ron is being surrounded by our foes. I must fight my way to his side, or these fearful masses will slay him in their terror. Meanwhile, he's just making hash out of these dudes.
Yeah, what a cool last panel there. God, the mummy looks amazing.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, really cool page overall. I mean, like you say, Merrick with his with the weird kind of like slash mark panels, and that's been a real kind of hallmark this issue, and I love it.
Me too.
Okay, so yeah, next page. So yeah, the battle is going, and then we see a gorgeous Zephyr. I'll say it. Thinks Encantu and his young friend are being overrun by Hydron's followers. The mob closes in on them from all sides. Though it will tax my returning powers to the limit, they must be saved. Such a fucking cool panel. Like, this middle thing is one of my favorite things of the entire issue. Not just because of Zephyr, but it is a large part of it. It's definitely part of it.
This one's for the fellas.
But it says, she is the mistress of the winds that seem to have a mind of their own as they separate friend from foe and deposit the latter the length and width of Cairo unharmed. So she's separating them with her powers, and I don't know. I think the way that all the bodies are just kind of like legs akimbo, and just is really, it really is what it would look if, yeah, you just kind of whirlwinded a bunch of people and separated them, which I thought was, yeah, really, really, really fucking cool. And then, yeah, at the end, we get the Asp, who's kind of comic relief. He's like, my head feels like the inside of a popcorn popper. I guess I should have followed my own advice about rolling with the fall. And Zephyr, before he can say something kind of shitty and misogynist, I'm assuming, Zephyr's like, quickly, my friends, Hydron was not killed by that bullet. And we must attend to Nkantu and his brave companion before the Waterlord regains consciousness. And then off panel, we hear a, too late, Zephyr. So I imagine
Probably what he sounds like.
his voice is more like that, I think. Yeah, it's very, very theatrical.
Jackson loves the colors on this last panel. So do I.
Aren't they cool? Oh my god, the
so
grades, like, god, fuck, so good.
I love the angle too. I love that last panel. I think is awesome. Like, just out of context, it's just a beautiful piece of art in general.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're moving on here. It's nearly a splash panel. We have Hydron, who we got to hear yell. Hydron has recovered from that cowardly attack, and now by my command, let there be rain. And so we got to see how powerful Zephyr truly is, her control of her element, and now we're going to get to see a bit of his. Asp says, "Cripes, it's worse than a tropical monsoon." And so they're all just being pummeled by this heavy, like torrential rain. And it says, and far deadlier, thinks Zephyr, for she knows Hydron is capable of drowning even this desert city with his fearsome power. And Miles is saying, this rain's going to drive us into the ground up to our knees. So, it's just coming down hard. It's like pounding them in like tent stakes. And it's quite possible, she decides. But Hydron has, as in the past. I wasn't super wild about the execution of the art, the faces and stuff like that here, but I appreciate the spirit of this page as a whole, of just being like almost expressive, or impressionistic, just like showing that in this torrent of water, they're just kind of like secondary.
Oh, it's super cool. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the execution specifically on the faces isn't as great as I would like to be. But, Hydron looks amazing in that upper panel. Yeah, like, he looks great. So
Zephyr always looks great.
Yeah, I mean, Zephyr's always going to look great. Enough said. So, yeah, next page. But it says Hydron underestimated her own resources. Curse that witch of a serving maid. Her damnable winds are driving back the rain on my own forces. And I love that, Zephyr at the bottom is just kind of like holding her arms out and saying, Richard, while they're off balance. Richard, all right. I love it. There's a familiarity there. And the Asp is like, you got it, lady. Though I don't know how you learned my real name. That'll be one clip of covering fire to go. Yeah, he is. I mean, we had a lot of feeling for him and his backstory and stuff, but really he's just kind of a fucking goofball that is comic relief, but also is kind of like all of his jokes are groaners in a lot of ways. But and then he says, hey, even Hydron's ducking for cover. I guess one taste of mortal lead was enough for him. But I'd like to think that Zephyr's just like, I'm not paying attention to what you're saying. I'm going to imagine that you're a man who's saying, normal shit. And she's like, join us now, Richard. We are ready to depart.
It's like she's trying to get him to leave Chuck E. Cheese or something like that. Like, come on, we gotta get in the car.
Come on, dude. Come on.
But yeah, I agree. Asp is very much just a lovable doofus. I think he's probably a fairly competent thief who's got a very high confidence level, and that's about all he really has going for him. And I think he's probably handsome, so he probably does okay with the ladies. That's about
he probably does.
But yes, hilarious. So final page here. Zephyr creates this cool sphere of like wind power, and Hydron's on the ground saying, they're escaping. Stop them, you fools. Stop them. And he's just ranting and raving. but there's a sudden pleasant, cool breeze that sweeps through the streets of the imprisoned city, carrying with it 5 people to a promise of tomorrow. So I love that Encanto's carrying Ron because he probably got his ass handed to him by getting mobbed by like dozens of people. So he's
Yeah.
probably a little out of it. And so, yeah, and so Zephyr's whisking them away as we have a literal fist shaking from Hydron on the ground.
He is. He's shaking
He
his
says, "It's not,
fist.
it's not over yet, wench. Do you hear me? It's not over." I believe we were promised an origin like 2 issues ago.
Yep, we were
So
promised it.
this whole serving wench thing, I need them to stop saying that until they tell us their origin story because it seems to have been a key part of the dynamics of her among the four, and they don't tell us why, and it's starting to frustrate me.
Yeah, it's starting to
Um,
frustrate me too. They really shouldn't have stretched it out that long, or they shouldn't have teased it.
yeah.
No.
So he's saying this isn't over, and tomorrow beyond the battle still to come. And we see them swooping off, and they're wondering, is there not a danger of our being spotted? And Zephyr says, the winds that carry us cover our path in Kantu. We are invisible from the ground. And then the 2 word balloons get switched here because Miles had on a this colored shirt and Asp had on a white shirt, but they got the balloons wrong. So it says, I could get to like this, Asp. And he says, great, old Dan, great. I'm getting airsick. But they switched their balloons.
Yep.
And then, as you can see here, because there's Miles with the... Anyway, they arrive, they land, and Miles says, so this is our hideout? It doesn't look like much. And Asp says, don't know about you, old Dan, but I'll follow this lady anywhere she wants to go. And so they enter this very humble little dwelling here, and they say, Encantu says, or Zephyr says, Encantu said that Dr. Scarab and the woman were waiting for us here, but they're gone, and there's no one in this just empty, dark room. Encantu has felt the sinking feeling before, the day the Pharaoh's men took his people. That's the end of the issue, and the teaser for next is The Wizard Within. So, yeah, little cliffhanger ending there. We've lost some of our party, and it was the part of the party that had the device, the MacGuffin that's supposed to save everybody. So that's not good.
Yeah, it's awesome. I did like in that almost last panel with Zephyr. I guess I didn't pay as much attention to her like standing near or next to the Asp. And Zephyr's like 6'2" or something.
Totally. I know. I love that. He's like 5'8".
He's like 5'8" or 5'7". And yeah, if I couldn't love her more, I'm just like, oh, she's tall too? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. She looks down to Grace Jones.
Yeah.
Cool. So we have a letter, Jacob.
I'm ready.
This is from issue 15. Dear Tony and Val, A Separate War was quite good. I'm glad to see Living Mummy get some well-deserved attention. I know of quite a few people who have picked up the comic because of frenzied fans mooning over not only Encantu, but also over the relationship between the Asp and Old Dan, and also over Zephyr. Now that all these newcomers are coming to supernatural thrillers, I'm glad to see that they won't be disappointed. Tony never stops experimenting, and I particularly like the double narration technique with the omnipotent traditional narrator and one of the characters, Encantu, telling the story simultaneously. The only part I didn't like was page 7, which was told from the point of view of a rat. I think this person's confused. That wasn't Encantu. That was the rat splitting the narration the whole time up to 7, right? 7's where it died.
7 is where it died.
Yeah, that person thought that Encantu's, the black boxes were Encantu, but it was the rat. All the black boxes were the rat. Anyway, so I think they're wrong. But Tony exaggerated his experiment until when it reached this page, it became self-parody. But regardless of how page 7 failed, I felt that the multi-narration device should have been utilized through the rest of the story. Encantu, as we've all noticed, has become anything but a fearsome character. Rather, he's become a rather unique, totally different sort of protagonist. I hate to tell you... where did I go? I hate to tell you what to do with him since you're doing it all so well yourself. The Asp-Old Dan relationship. There is quite a controversy over it. To be sure, there is love between them, but whether or not it is sexual is something else. Tony wouldn't be able to say it, but he could have elaborated on their relationship a little more. or a little less. I didn't object at all to the text page dealing with their relationships in issue 11, but its length was disturbing. It left readers right between understanding Aspen Old Dan and being sent off the deep end with between the lines theories. As for Zephyr, among her supporters, I am probably the loudest. Zeph is one terrific heroine, and I think the Mistress of the Winds is a terrific addition to Marvel's sparsely stocked heroine supply. Um, Pages 26 and 30 were tremendous, superb, beautiful. Zephyr has potential. Don't let her suddenly be gone with the wind. Ugh. She can make or break this strip, and she's making it. That's from Bob Rohde in, is it Oak Brook, Illinois?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's our letter. Final thoughts. Should you go?
Sure. I mean, like I said through this whole thing, I mean, I think there are a lot of big swings narratively, art wise. Like the whole thing is just them trying to do so much. Like there's so many different narrative points of view. The art is trying to do something interesting. They're commenting on war. They're commenting on global politics, about how humans deal with war, about media and war. And it's just, there's a huge laundry list of stuff that they're trying to convey on this. And I think they actually do a pretty good job of most of it, which is admirable. Like I say, this is a smaller book. This is a low selling book. They're able to do kind of what they want. And, you know, like our other books that have been like kind of, you know, canceled unceremoniously, it is kind of getting going. I mean, I guess with supernatural thrillers, they have been able to flesh out a supporting cast, you know, with you know, Brother Voodoo or any of the other ones. It's like the issue that the supporting cast starts coming out, then it's like, yep, that's it. But with this, I mean, yeah, we got to learn a lot about the Aspen Old Dan. We got to, you know, we're learning more about the elementals, but mostly focusing on Zephyr, and Zephyr's become a really cool character. So I don't know. I think 92% of this issue works amazingly well. And so, I mean, enough of it works to where I really can't complain about the tiny bit that I don't think anything fails. I just think some things succeed better than others. So in that spirit, I have to say this is a great issue. And yeah, I really loved this. I think these are just getting better.
I agree. I think each issue of this book is getting better. My notes just kind of said for final thoughts here, lots of nice big swings, visual storytelling flexing a bit, Tony continuing his rapid maturation. There was times, I didn't bring this up, I should have mentioned this. There was times here where I almost saw what reminded me of like Hulk era Peter David, like
Mm-hmm.
just like reminded me like that Gamma Bomb story, like
Yeah.
when you would just jump into Frank Buchanan's living room.
Yeah.
That just reminded me of like Peter David, where it's just like you're going to this small town in the desert and you're just meeting these random people that are all about to get destroyed or mutated
Mm-hmm.
by a gamma
Yep.
bomb. Like it just felt very mature and just very like not experimental. But I mean, a lot of this did feel experimental to me. I agree with you. I'd say about 92% of it worked. A lot of big reaches, a lot of big swings, and even if everything didn't land the way they intended it to, nothing clunked to me really. Nothing was clunky. I just felt like they were really feeling their oats and feeling like, man, I'm digging this. Let's push it. Let's push it. And I'm never going to complain about that. So the use of the second person and narration, that's always hard to do well. I think it worked in here. Split narrators, one of them being a rat. I mean, just a bunch of wild swings here. They felt very creative and bold. And I say, good for you. Keep doing it. I liked it a lot.
I agree. In the messages, Patrick Speck said, I really like this one. Letty says, loads of crazy and scary moments. Really enjoyed. David Goodwin, I liked it a lot. Confused a few times, but that's not a bad thing. I agree. Jackson Overseat said, great issue. The creators took advantage of the extra room they had. Yeah, fully agree with all of you. This was a blast to go through. I'm really glad that this issue was on our live stream as well. So cool.
Yeah. And thank you to all of you who showed up. Appreciate that very much. Congrats to Letty, who's going to be the owner of a Bronze Age Monsters water bottle. Folks, always let us know like other stuff you want to stream in the future or whatever else in the comments down below, and give us a like. We'll do more drawings and stuff and give away more freebies. We're happy to do it, and we love to spread the wealth around, especially if it's got our logo on it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a win-win. Cool. I'm super excited. I'm bummed there's only 2 issues of this left, to be
I
completely honest.
know.
Yeah, I feel like I did, while I was looking around for the letters, I did see in issue 15, the final issue, that I believe someone kind of basically said like they're going to wrap this up in this other book, and it didn't happen. Because I checked, I was like, wait
Oh
a minute, really?
no.
So I'm not sure how much of a lurch we're left in, but they did not wrap it up in that way. He appears in with a thing in a Marvel 2-in-1, which we're going to have to do because we had such a good time doing that Golem one, and so we're going to do that for our Patreon supporters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and then he appears. When you go through these things of appearances, everybody appears in Contest of Champions 1 and 2. So I believe that was just a literally every character appear. I never read it. Have you ever read Contest of Champions?
No.
Okay, it seemed like it's a precursor to Secret Wars or something, where like
Sounds like it.
yeah. So I don't know what that is, but every character that I look up is in it. So I don't think they actually do anything. I think they appear in a 2-page spread, like,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, type of thing like that, where it's just like a roll call of everybody in the Marvel 616.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but we will have to cover him in there. And then he doesn't really pop up much. He actually pops up in the Captain America, the Grunwald, the Search for the Bloodstone, or whatever that storyline is.
Really? That's
Because
cool.
one of the it's not Bloodstone. What is it? It's the maybe it is a Bloodstone. It's that's the Scourge. A Bloodstone Hunt. That's what
Bloodstone
it is.
Hunt. Okay.
Um, yeah, and you and I love Mark Grunwald's Captain America, and it's
Absolutely.
got Diamondback in it. They're kind of almost dating at that point, so I'm always drooling over that. So we're gonna have to do that sometime as a little short. It's like 5 issues. It's super fun, but something we can talk about in the future. So on the bonus show, by the way, this week, we're going to be talking about Mexican wrestling hero luchador El Santo. We watched the 1971 film La Venganza de la Momia, The Mummy's Revenge. And we watched that in the Discord with our friends and had a great time with that one. If you don't know who El Santo is, you'll have to check out the bonus show and get a little. We're not going to go too deep on it, but yeah,
Still.
he's a very, very famous and beloved figure in Mexican pop culture. Been around for decades. Yeah, so wrestling plus monsters. I mean, where can you go wrong there? So, if you would like to be the type of person who gets to check out the bonus show and hear us talk about that and other types of things like that, or you would like to see us visually do a visual read through Power Record style of the Marvel 2-in-1 with the Living Mummy, you can join our Patreon group and back us there. Many of the show's listeners choose to do that. There's several tiers of support to fit pretty much every budget, but the most popular one is Pack Member, and that's $5 a month. And they get a weekly bonus show and an audio podcast format or a video format on YouTube that you can watch. And they also get special gated content like that Marvel 2-in-1 I was just talking about. Yeah, Jacob made a music video for a song off of his EP that he just released. That was another thing that we gave away as a sneak preview first. They always get first dibs on anything that we make that's special before we share it with the rest of the world. They also get shout out credits in the bonus show and verbal shout outs in the main show. Come saw. That's fine folks like Tim Tucker,
Brian from Marvel by the Month.
Blake, last name withheld,
Caleb.
David Goodwin. Good to see you, David.
Ben M.
Michelle from Moonlight Comics.
Letty. Congratulations, Letty. Good to have you here.
Yes, good to see you always, Letty. Johnny Turner.
Justin the Owl.
Russ from Taste the Pod of Dracula.
Brad Michael Elmore.
Jason Finestone. Thanks for joining us tonight, Jason. Good to see you.
Worm Drive Pro.
Jared C.
Brink.
David D.
Glenn Lash. Good to see you, Glenn.
Rob from Marvel by the Month.
Dave Kennedy.
Benjamin Potter.
Steve Lacey.
Brian Steed.
Tony Iupi. Thanks so much to our pack members. You guys are the best. Good to see a lot of you here tonight.
Yeah, and don't forget, guys, Tony Iuppi was the one that told us about the polyptych, and
Mm-hmm.
follow him on Instagram to see his amazing art. That's Stupid Sketchbook.
So, the final tier of our Patreon is for the Star Gods. These celestial barbarian deities get even more content exclusive to that tier and a thank you gift from our Threadless shop after 6 months of membership. That's right, Star Gods get to pick out a coffee mug, travel cup, or t shirt from the show's shop, and we'll send it right to their mailboxes. The hallowed ranks of Star Gods include fine folks like Landon,
Jesse McFerrin,
MJ,
Ryan from Across the Bifrost, a Mighty Thor podcast,
John Walsh,
Michael Giacchino,
Melissa Watts,
Josh Link.
Mark Nevins,
Thanks for joining us tonight, Mark. Eric Hadley,
Catherine Neff,
and Jackson T. Overstreet. Thanks for joining us, Jackson. All right, folks. We still currently have a voicemail. If you choose to engage with us that way, we'd love to hear from you and play your message on the air. That's 971-220-5865, 971-220-JUNK. You can also email us at bronzeagemonsters@gmail.com. And we're on our socials at Bronze Age Monsters as well. That's Threads, Instagram, and Blue Sky. We'd love to hear from you there. We did get some mail from Jason Feinstone that I was going to share, but we'll do that on the next episode.
Cool.
All right, folks. Thanks for joining us. Next up is Supernatural Thrillers number 14, which has the same creative team with a little bit of a tweak. We have Al McWilliams on inks instead of Dan Green, and Phil P. Rocca Rachelson on colors.
So funny.
So, yeah, I got to say, I'm going to miss Dan Green because, like I said, he's a chameleon who elevates everybody's pencils that he works on. And he was a great fit for Val's work. But I don't know. I don't know if I know Alan McWilliams, to be honest. So
I don't know either.
I looked him up, and a lot of his stuff was Golden Age. So I'll be curious to hear what you dig up. Like, yeah, he most of the credits I saw were like from like Crackajack Funnies.
Oh no,
1939. So, yeah, I think he did some like Terry and the Pirates or the Owl or something for Crackajack Funnies and something else.
He got his start on the funny animal books. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, until we meet next week, stay bronze, Pony Boy. Stay bronze. Thanks, everybody. It was great to see you all tonight. We love you.
Thank you.